we did land on the moon, but we were warned off by the ETs because we were not ready, because we would pollute the places we visit outside Earth. So if they prevent us from going back, we would pollute the places we visit outside Earth. So if they prevent us from going back to the moon again, they would prevent other malicious ETs from coming to us on Earth. So they would serve like a role of a guardian, preventing the harmful ETs from invading or maybe causing negative consequences to the people on Earth. So I think it goes both ways. We are not allowed to go back on the moon, and they wouldn't allow other people to do harm onto us.
Yeah. I have so many questions just from that. So I hope I don't get it all mixed up. But for just very quickly about the moon before we can leave the moon is they mentioned that, and I don't have the number, so maybe you'll know it, but that in a certain amount of years, an insane amount of years, the moon would eventually collide into Earth because of just how the orbit works, right? But it
Mm.
was definitely more than 100. So when I saw that in the book, I put a question mark and said, they're saying that they can only see 100 years into the future. So how would they know that this event would happen like 1,000 or so years in the future? Is it because of just mathematics or what?
They can only see 100 years into the future regarding the activities of people, human beings on Earth, because we have our own free will. So we determine our future. Everything is changeable. So depending on how we respond to certain situations, we can change the direction of our future. But on the other hand, when no human beings, no free will is involved, such as the distance between Earth and Moon, that one is for certain, is for sure, because it doesn't involve any free will of human beings.
Ah, okay. Thanks for clearing that up. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you're mentioning about like kind of a quarantine. So I'm going back into the raw material where they talk about, the quarantine.
Mhm.
Because this actually they if you really go deep into it, I actually was able to pull this up earlier. They talk about the Council of Saturn, kind of them being, it's not saying like it's kind of a mishmash between Dioba and the raw material. They say that there's like a group of 20 something beings on the planet of Saturn that kind of decide whether or not beings can come in and out of Earth. Like they kind of are the gatekeepers. And they mentioned the word guardians. They say they are the guardians. And they say that for sure in the 80s, this happened in the 80s, this abduction. In the 80s, they were not permitting any break of the quarantine. And yet negative aliens from the Orion, I guess, constellation were still getting in. And from what I've read and what I've researched, it sounds like the ways that they're able to get in outside of the universal laws and codes is one through being outright invited by people. So that person who's out there channeling and calling in spirits and stuff like that, they literally are kind of pulling in some of the bad aliens. Then you have the hybridization, which we got to kind of go back to the ETs. And I mean, literally, there are some people on YouTube. I can give you a list of people who have said that they are hybrids, and I assure you that they are, and some high level ones as well. So they've been doing this for a while, and clearly they've already started creating these beings that are half gray, half human for whatever their purpose is. Um, but because they have that connection, it's almost like a family. Like, hey, that's my sister. I can come in now. So now they have an into our planet. And then the other way is they say that there's sometimes windows that they can get into, like these kind of very quickly slants and stuff. I'm not sure how to explain that, but they mentioned that. This point brings me back to this book.
Mhm.
The way that they abducted Michel and then the way that they even returned him, even he had a question about it. He goes, why can't you just return me back? Like, I know who you are now. I'm not scared. Like, just drop me back in my garden. They still had to go through that parallel Earth, that kind of lost world, the one that's connected to like the portals and the Bermuda Triangle and stuff like that. That to me was questionable. I put a big question mark on that.
Mhm.
Why do you think that was?
Because they didn't want to be seen by the people on Earth, so they used the parallel universe as a hiding place to prevent people from seeing their spacecrafts. And also, this is the whole reason why, like, if you do some research on the internet, like missing 411, people disappear under strange circumstances when they hike on the mountains or hills of national parks. And also there's also other people who observe UFOs or UAPs appear and disappear from certain locations in the sky or in space. So it actually kind of indirectly proved what's written or described in this book, that there are certain locations on Earth or in space that are the entry points or portals of going into and coming out of a parallel universe. So it's another kind of paranormal field,
Yeah.
like Missing 411 by David Paulides. He's a very good researcher and private investigator as well. So that book or his books explain the situations, how people disappear. So I think if you connect all the dots together, it's going to convince you more that what Michel personally experienced is for real.
Well, like I said, I know that some of what they said is definitely true. That still doesn't make me, sure that they are positive aliens. I definitely have my question marks because
Mhm.
I feel like when they were in Aramo X, this kind of can bring us into another field of questions, but they before he had even known who they were, he had Thou had already killed somebody. She had killed a few of the men that were
Yeah.
attacking in that world. But then in the explanation, even he was kind of taken aback by this. Like, how are you highly spiritual and killing somebody? And she had her explanations and said that by killing him, she was liberating him, etc. But it really stuck with me that something's not right here. It just really isn't. Because she could have, the same way they froze the other people, they could have froze those men. They didn't have to die. Um, but I believe that their spacecraft was, I mean, given their high technology, for them to not have what I know other aliens have, like they can appear invisible, is a big question mark. I know that spacecraft, I haven't been in that spacecraft, but I know that they have an invisibility shield. I know it's there. So I don't think that's a good explanation personally, you know. But I definitely agree to like the Bermuda Triangle. I used to freak out when I used to work on a cruise ship and I had to go over the Bermuda Triangle because I know that that's a portal without question. And there was somebody else, I wish I knew who it was, but someone said it was some kind of psychic or somebody who had that experience. Or maybe it was I forget what it was, but someone said that that flight that went missing, the Malaysia flight, I think it was like 370 or something. They,
MH370.
yes, they said that that group had made a pre-birth contract that they would have that experience of going into that dimension. Not maybe not that dimension, but into a dimension together. So
You
that's
know,
interesting.
regarding the Malaysian Airlines, that incident is very very. I'm I'm leaning towards like both explanations. One say is that there's a conspiracy, by the either the Chinese government or the U.S. government for some reason, and the other explanation is that they went into a parallel universe accidentally. I don't know which way to go because it's very strange. I tend to lean towards the conspiracy theory of the
Hmm.
governments, the Chinese and American governments,
Yes.
and not the parallel universe because yeah, there are certain important people on the plane.
Oh, okay.
And regarding the reason they use parallel universe, I think they indeed can make their spacecraft transparent or disappear, but they really wanted to explain to Michel Desmarquet certain paranormal phenomena on Earth, such as the Bermuda Triangle. So that's why they purposely kind of went through this process. I think this is probably the reason, and also for another reason that they can make themselves transparent or disappear, but they probably couldn't make Michel Desmarquet disappear or transparent. It's just my guess. They prefer just to educate Michel Desmarquet and to inform him of what happened in the Bermuda Triangle and to build more credibility to the into the book and what Michel Desmarquet was going to write about.
Mm.
And also the reason why they killed the four people because they were clearly in imminent danger, and and also yeah the explanation of liberating the four people because the time is really stops in the parallel universe. David Paulides had like encounters or maybe had stories of people who like when they found the corpse of the people who disappeared, they saw that they seemed to walk to their bones. So the bones disappeared, like came out from walking. So they didn't really feel any. It seemed like they didn't feel any pain in where they came from. like in the parallel universe. So they didn't
Uh-uh.
feel any pain, and time stops, and so everything kind of seemed to match. So I think that could be a explanation for to your questions.
Yeah. I mean, it could be an explanation for the way out, but even Michelle said, I don't understand why on the way back I can't. Like, and he would know better. And I confirm with him that unless, like you said, they couldn't make him disappear, but they make their technology sound so advanced that I don't want to even put limitations on it. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to disappear with because he's within it. If you're within a spaceship and it goes invisible, this is like we have this technology, like some of the planes can do invisibility with the reflection and stuff. So I just find that it could be an explanation, but it doesn't, make me feel really like, okay, this is for sure. Okay. And it's fine. It's fine. But I just want to make sure we put it all out there so people who read it can also, like, they might have the same questions I have. So let's jump straight into and I don't want to take, I mean, like, we'll see what time is happening. I think we've done an hour, but let's jump straight into the Middle East, the Abrahamic religions. I mean, the amount of interfering, and it always made me wonder when I read the Bible. Well, two things made me wonder is just like how all the prophets happen to be of the same line. Like, it definitely seems like a family type thing. And it's starting to make more sense to me now that I've read this book, but also the tone of the Bible. I'm not Christian. I didn't grow up Christian, but I had friends who told me to read the book of Job, which was my first time ever reading the Old Testament. And I was terrified. I finished reading it. I got the moral of the story, but I was like, who is this person saying that they are God? This is a psychopath. Why does no one's paying attention to this? And finally now, when you really get into like the world of, truth seeking, people are saying it. You have people like Paul Wallace, who is an ex clergyman or clergyman, and he knows the Bible back and front, and he's saying that it's aliens, reptilian, like he knows that that's not God. Whoever was speaking there is not God. And so to have that background, that's my understanding and what I truly believe. And then to hear from the people of the Thiaoouba that they're saying that anytime that they're speaking about the word of God, it's really them. That put another big question mark about who are you guys really? Because the person telling them to kill all the first sons and to kill the woman and to rape this, and I mean, slaughter. It's all about blood, killing, and what we're seeing right now in Israel is what, basically what is in the whole Bible at the beginning. And that was the voice of the Theobans, or was that something that was completely just flipped up and then written by mankind?
Written by mankind, because if I were the clergy in the church, I would distort the Bible and then saying that if you don't follow God, which is us representing God, then you're going to be punished and you're going to be dead for sure. You're going to go to hell. I would do that. I mean, if I were the evil priest of the church, and I don't think that's said by the Theobans. I don't think those are said by the angels. I mean, those are just humans' way of getting more control of the mass through psychological fear, and also kind of like, I think those are just imaginations with manipulations and things like that.
I mean, it could be because people who know the Catholic Church know what their MO is. Like, that's what they do. They hide the stuff that you really need to know, and they switch up things and all that kind of stuff. However, if you look at the book and what they said at one point, and I hope I have it here, Thou says, you are on your planet to learn how to live, suffer, and die, but also grow spiritually. So that already is just like, that's what we're here for. Great, good times. But but they also make it very clear that as the guardians, as the supposed guardians of Earth, that they have the power. And I hope I wrote this here somewhere too, but you know the book, so people can find it. They have the power, if we are not doing right, to annihilate us, to punish us. Is what they use the word punish.
Yes.
And so if that doesn't sound like the God from the Old Testament, I don't know what does. Because punishing us means destroy us. You said it yourself that eventually, if we don't get our act together, they can come and annihilate us in the same way that the continent of Mu was, obliterated.
Not continent of Mu, but Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, see, exactly. So I'm saying, so it as much as that's what I'm saying, we can't get so tied into this because it's a nice story. We will I not even a story. It's a nice experience, but if we're really trying to protect the people of Earth, like you said, we have to discern. We really have to, because there are negative aliens out there that are not going to come and be obvious about it. There's a guy on YouTube who, from like ages ago, he's probably making so much money, but when YouTube first started, he started doing a show. I don't want to say his name or anything because it gets into that, but he literally said that how it all started was that he connected with telepathically with a reptilian. And the first time he connected with this reptilian, he was terrified. Like he literally just shut off the connection and just like, no. But something pushed him to do it again. He pushes that connection again. And then all of a sudden he's feeling love, complete love, that divine love that NDEers talk about. Who's to say? Because I've read enough things where I'm beginning to get kind of, not to say scared, but I'm beginning to wonder. They have some sort of technology that can mess with our emotions, that can literally make us feel love when we probably shouldn't be feeling love or feeling secure. And this is confirmed in this book as well, because what happens with Michelle when that I forget her name, but Lady Noli or something like that, when one of the Thiaoubans touches him and says his name 3 times slowly, he starts feeling this euphoria. And they said, oh, we're able to do that. We're able to like kind of charm you and make you feel whatever. So this is clearly tech that we are just completely unaware of as humans. There's a lot of stuff we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the punishments, I think sometimes it will be necessary to remove a malignant tumor if someone has cancer. So by similar token, I think when you cannot find one righteous person in the city, then it will be the best not to keep the 2 cities, or not to keep the city, and to destroy the 2 cities. It would be necessary. Otherwise, it would contaminate other people's mind. And remember, the psyche and the consciousness, or maybe the spiritual development, is actually the most important thing for living here. And we don't want these infections or contaminations or spread of the tumor. And I think it's kind of logical. At least I can accept that. It's logical to me, because we do surgery removals of tumors. And in terms of reptilians, you know, I don't find any evidence of the existence of reptilians at all. You know.
Oh my goodness! I am so surprised to hear that. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. And
No,
that's what, go ahead.
as I mentioned, like if someone says something, I need specific verifiable fact to support it. I mean,
Okay.
so far I've learned a lot of facts that are countering the existence of reptilians. So there's a Dutch banker called Ronald Bernard, and he used to work with members of the Illuminati, and he personally observed someone using magical or magic powers to make a person feel extremely uncomfortable by having like a heat, like heart attack or something like that. And so those people, high degree members of the Illuminati, they have what we would call supernatural powers. And I would say that people imagine those people to be like the reptilians, but actually those are just human beings having this kind of magical powers or psychic powers. And I don't, you know.
I am so surprised to hear that. I 100% believe and that they're there. It totally resonates with me. And I've heard so many stories of people who are connecting with them. And I've seen one. I've seen one in my third eye, oddly enough, because I'm definitely not trying to connect because they are terrifying. But I had both a gray, and I'm not, this is the first time I'm telling anybody this, but a gray and I didn't know what it was until I saw it later. I was like, what the heck was that? And I was like, oh my God, you know, so I cut off that channel real quick, you know, but I saw one in my third eye. So I totally, when you look at their characteristics, it's very similar, like you said, to those people who are in power. And I love that you mentioned this, so I have to say this. You mentioning that they have the power because of their, like, say, magic and stuff like that is real, or just having this know-how that we don't understand, but we call it magic.
Yeah.
Technology we don't understand. Last night, an MP of Egypt was not to say, well, I guess last night, there was a video that came up on the New York Post and some other places where he was giving a speech about you know, what's happening in the Middle East, and he had a heart attack as he was saying that, you know, we're gonna get you guys or something like that. And everybody was like, and it brought me back to the Thiaoouba and what they say and stuff, because they were like, oh, don't mess with the Israelites. And they started pulling out Bible quotes and stuff like that. They're the chosen ones and da da da. But ultimately, especially given the timing of that, it could also be where it was somebody who, in a high place of power, who gave him that heart attack. There was a Irish comedian who was supporting, the Palestinians, and he said that a woman contacted him saying that she was a Hebrew witch, and that she was going to curse him. So people who don't live in that world of understanding that there's the metaphysical world, to them it's just all woo woo. They're just like, what are you guys talking about? None of this exists until it becomes very apparent, until we have disclosure and there's ships flying around. And that brings me to another point here, because in their ability to create these illusions or hallucinations and using the fear, there are people, even before I reread this book, that were saying that that's exactly how the aliens were planning, to do disclosure, is that they would use the fear that is being created by all the media that's going up, and how the government's starting to say, okay, there is this and we still have found bodies and stuff like that. So make sure that it's something that's possible for them, right? And then get the fear going, and then potentially create a whole scenario similar to, remember the seceding Africans in this book, the ones who went and they had the evil priest, and the Ethiopians killed the evil priest and then showed this big, I guess, I don't know what they were showing exactly in the sky, but something to scare the people, to make them go away, to go somewhere. So that's a possibility. I think that if people really were smart, whether you believe this book or the raw material or any of this stuff, it's important that we all know this. Like, we just really need to be, everybody should, it's not just one or two people, everybody should be, and the books that you say, I think that you're a great resource. Like, you have a lot of information and you're clearly looking. So I want to put up all the books that you're mentioning, because these are things that we have to be aware of. We need to know what's happening around us, at least a little bit,
Yes.
and be prepared. But yeah, so anyway, so getting back to the Middle East, so they were kind of interfering with a lot of like Moses, they said, was not Hebrew, he was actually Egyptian.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting in his story, because it's like, you're full Egyptian, you're sympathetic to the Hebrew situation, but remember how he left, he was kicked out of Egypt, or how he had to like flee, was because he had seen the Hebrews kill an Egyptian, and then they try to put it on him. So I was like, so imagine if that was you. Like, imagine you're trying to help somebody, then they try to do something to really, do you dirty, and you have to leave your homeland, and then to come back and then save them. I thought that was very, very interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but just very interesting psychologically.
He was led by the Thebans to save the Hebrews, because at that time the Thebans were already chosen the Hebrews as a chosen people. I mean, they always took a special care on the Hebrews. I don't know why, but they did, and they believed that the Hebrews were more spiritual, and in at least in comparison to, or comparing to the Egyptians, the evil pharaohs, and also during the birth of the period of birth of Jesus, and under the Roman Empire's regime, they were doing a lot of bad things psychologically to the people at that time. The Romans were doing those things, so they wanted to kind of keep the Hebrew people more spiritual. So that's why they sent Jesus and Christ here. So I think they want to help us just to grow spiritually, and not to worship idols, or kind of man-made God or something like that. I think that's the reason they interfered, and just to lead us to the right path.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, when it comes to their relationship with the Hebrews, it seems to me very, very dangerous, and I see a very clear line between what might have happened there and what's happening now with Zionism, and how they're literally massacring a whole other people.
Yeah. So
And
this is why they didn't choose another Hebrew or Jewish person. They chose Michel Desmarquet.
oh yeah, you're right. You're right. That's very weird that they
Yes.
didn't, because it's like, oh, this is our chosen, but we're not gonna, give you our book. You're like, what?
Right.
But
And actually, let me reveal a secret.
oh,
Michel
whoa, whoa.
Desmarquet specifically mentioned not to translate this book into Hebrew language.
Whoa.
So it says something, right?
Oh yes, that says something.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, we'll let people think about that. That's
Mm.
interesting. Thanks for that little tidbit. Um, but when I just think about their relationship, like it's even like when people look at the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, kind of like like the golden child, where they can't do any wrong. They can literally kill millions of people and nothing, go get ice cream, But it's the same with because I saw a lot of the similarities between like colonialism and like how the and I don't even want to go that deep because it's really it's not going to work here. But I just saw a lot of let's just say parallels between colonialism and kind of this attitude. But let me see, where am I going to go with this? Uh, it just seems that when you're taking one group, like when you look at Rwanda and you look at the Hutu and the Tutsi, how the Dutch, they literally kind of started that by taking one group and saying you are superior than this other group. You're setting the seeds for future turmoil easily. And if you're a parent, you know that if you have one child you're saying is literally your golden child and the other one's the black sheep, you're causing problems that are going to last for a whole lifetime, if not more. So it's just a lot of the things that we might have excuses for them. To me, I'm just like, this just to me looks like you're too advanced for it to not to be a mistake. You know, I can't give them a leeway for some of those things, because even with Jesus, and so just to clarify so people understand if they haven't read the book, Jesus is considered, and please confirm, I don't know exactly, but he was what level before he came here? He was a higher level being.
Nice, nice.
Ninth. Oh, really? Okay. So ninth level that came in, the first Jesus. We're going to have Jesus 1 and Jesus 2, right?
Yeah.
So the first Jesus came in as a spirit and goes through the river of forgetting, or whatever they call that.
River of Oblivion.
Say it again?
River of Oblivion.
Oh, oblivion. Okay, yeah. So the river of oblivion. So he forgets who he is, what he is, and but still feels like he has this mission. A lot of people like yourself can understand that. You come, you don't know who you were, but you know you have a mission. So, and I'll get to a very weird anecdote about the first Jesus. So he comes and they confirm the virgin birth, that they implanted an embryo in her, in Mary, and that the star that the well, they say it wasn't the three wise men. It was just like a group of people who saw the spaceship or the orb or whatever. So they thought it was a star, and it just gives a lot of it can be confirmed. Like there's literally pictures of the birth of Jesus, where they're showing UFOs. They're
Yeah.
showing that. It's just amazing. Um, and so here's I think this is a question. Why um and I think it's answered in the book, so you can answer quickly. But why the need for aeroic, the Theoban astral body to come in the body that they created? Yeah,
Because people at that time didn't believe anything um, outside of their perception unless someone can show them miracles. So this is the reason that they sent the second, I would call Christ here, the Christ here, and just to perform miracles so that his teachings could be believed by the people at that time. So
yes.
that's the main reason. Yeah.
Now the thing I want to mention about this is that this story isn't new, oddly enough, right? And I grew up Muslim, so I read the Quran. I know the Quran, and I know the Gospel of Barnabas, which I think is a beautiful story. And both of those mention, you can Google it and literally it'll come up. They both mention that Jesus never died on the cross. That but it's a little different. In the Quran, it says that the actual Jesus went to heaven, and that a double, they just consider it a double, a body double. God put a body double on the cross to take the pain and everything. So that's the story there. So it's similar, somewhat similar, and it kind of leaves credence to their story that it really might have been exactly what they said there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was amazing. And they go on to say, unlike the Quran, the Theobans say that the actual Jesus, Yeshua, I have to call him Yeshua, Yeshua goes to Japan and
Yes.
kind of gets married, has three girls, I think, or just three children,
Mm.
and lives his life in like a very long life, like 100 and something years old.
Yes.
And when I read that, I immediately went to Google and I started to look into it. And it's just an amazing story. But first of they on that particular channel say that his brother, and some people do know that Jesus had a brother, it's just not talked about much, that he was the one that went on the cross for him. But you can see how back in the day it could have been a confusion that there's a person who looks just like him on the cross, that it might have been his brother, but it's really just heroic, you know. But there's also the story that the brother died on the way, like in China, I think they said, on the
Yes, his
way
brother
to
died in
Japan.
China.
Yes, yes, and that he brought a piece of his. One story says a piece of his hair, and another story says a piece of his ear or something, and buries it there.
A bundle of the hair, a year of his hair.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So when I was reading that and looking into it, I'm telling you, if you get a chance and you're a truth seeker, look into that part of Japan and what the story is there. I started crying so hard, like it doesn't make any good sense. And I'm still thinking it must be a past life, something I don't know, but something about that really touched me. And it really resonated. Like this is where he was 100%. So I have to say that that's one of the parts of this that I think is 100% true. Um, and it just changes the story. Some people are just not going to be able to handle that. And it goes into a question that I have as well. So we know that they had a lot to do with like Moses, with Jesus, with Abraham. We had the story of Abraham with the angels and stuff. Although Abraham, I think, might have been a normal, like, do you recall who was he a normal astral body, a normal human, or was he special as well?
It was a normal Hebrew, normal
Okay.
Hebrew. Yeah.
Okay. So we talk about pretty much all the prophets going from Judaism to Christianity. Is there any talk about, because we know there's three religions that we currently have on this planet that are connected to the Abrahamic faith or that area. Is there any talk about Prophet Muhammad at all in this, in what they say?
Not at all.
Okay. Okay.
That's the
And I
question I
thought
was
so.
going to ask Michel Desmarquet on the third.
Oh, but see, I'm glad. See, you're making me feel good that I'm giving you good questions because if you had the question, then it's a good question.
Right, right, right. It's a very good question.
So, okay, so there's no talk of that. Okay. So let me see what else I have here. I think we're getting close to the end here. Um, they never talk about, so now think about it, because part of what I do like, and it's no question, I just, like I said, I could get immerse myself in that planet. It's just so beautiful, everything they talk about with the sounds and the colors, and then the device that he uses to fly around, and they have the abilities are just off the charts. Oh, okay, very important before we get into all that. The golden doko. So this is where they take him, I think the last, I would say, day or last hours that he's on the planet, and he notices that there's no reflection in the water.
Yeah.
That to me, like I said, I'm looking for, as you can see, I'm very skeptical. I'm looking for reasons not to believe this, right? So I'm like, if there's no reflection in the water, is it a hologram? Is it really there? They also didn't allow him to touch the Jesus body that was sitting there. So that also makes me think, is it a hologram? Was it really there?
Is a very good question. I think the reason there's no reflection, I don't know why there's no reflection, but I think those are real corpse, because I think in the book it mentions that those are real corpse preserved in a special way in the Golden Local. I think the reason they showed it to Michel Desmarquet was to show that they had this kind of mentorship, like mentoring role in the galaxy, and having important people to go into each planet to make the necessary change so that people can really like learn from that person so they can be more spiritual toward the path of spirituality. So I think that's the reason they showed it to Michelle. That we are not just alone. We are not just people on a category 1 planet, and then suddenly they're category, like people on category 9 planet. They're like our peers who are elementary school students who are having this kind of the same struggles that we have on Earth. And they send people from time to time to help them. So I think this is the main reason they showed it to Michelle.
Okay. And so is it like two or three questions associated with that? So while they're there, he says, "Why don't I see Archie?" And we're going to go into Archie real quick too. He goes, "Why don't I see Archie there?" And then the response, like a lot of the responses from Thao after that during that day were very weird. It started to get very weird to me. And he apparently felt that because he even expresses that in the book. But she says, and you wouldn't see him any of his kind here. And he kind of was just like, okay. I'm kind of like, whoa. So I just thought that was weird. I know there's not even a question I can ask that, but I'm just mentioning that I thought that was weird. And then it goes into how Archie dies. I thought that was highly suspicious. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
you're right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we can just leave it at that. I don't want us getting in trouble,
No, I
but I
mean,
think it
I
was
can respond. I can respond to
okay. Okay.
the reason they didn't see Archie or people of his kind was that they helped themselves. So they were able to initiate this kind of movement or change in on their planet in that specific country, so that they didn't need the Theoban to send a person like Christ to their planet to help them. But we
Okay.
did because we needed their help. And the reason Archie died, I think this really suspicious that, when they took great pains to have Archie to come to meet with Michel Desmarquet. So
Mm,
it's a very, very difficult, and they did that like impromptu, like without planning. So they had Archie to meet with Michel Desmarquet just to tell him what happened to that country on their planet. I think that's one of the most important passages
mm,
in the book, is that we can imitate what happened on Arceus planet to make the necessary change on Earth, so that we don't have to like go through all the sufferings again. And I think Archie died just to make this like a memorable, a stronger impression on Michel Desmarquet. Is that for two reasons. One is that it's really important to follow what did the change or movement, what Archie did on their planet. And the second is that it really, we shouldn't sorrow, we shouldn't feel bad for a person's passing, because life goes on, and the soul is more important than the physical body. So this is why they emphasize that when one of the kings of Lemuria or Mu passed away, people celebrated. So because of his great accomplishments and so his great efforts. So I think when a person passes, we shouldn't really, like, if the person really fulfilled his or her life mission, we should celebrate. And I think that's the important knowledge to know.
okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I still think it's very highly suspicious. It's like somebody visiting, the president of Russia, and then on their flight is, exploding on the way out. So like I said, it's one of those things that I said, okay, I don't know, something's happening here. I don't know what it is, but something's not right. Um, but I want to go back at the end before we leave. I want to go back to what you're saying about Archie and his message. I want to make that very clear because I think it is 100% something that we can do now to make our world better. So I want to end on that. Um, so I'm going to go back to the Golden Doko. As they were leaving, another point that made me, like, it stayed in my head. I don't know the name of the place. I think it was called Naori. When Michelle saw that land to the left, and he said, like, what is that? And she kind of mentioned that it was the size of like Asia or something like that. And he goes, he was going to ask her, like, what is it? Like, what's happening there? And then like I said, I'm not making this up. Even he in the book is expressing that he thought it was weird that something interrupted them right at that moment. And he felt as if she was trying to not answer that question. So they did make it clear at the beginning that we're kind of just trying to show you what we need to show you. There's things that I cannot answer for you. Um, but it started to get even more like, okay, what are you hiding and why are you hiding it? Is it really for our protection, or is it because you're something's not right?
That's because I think Tao and their people were really emotional, knowing that Michel Desmarquet was about to depart from them, and that's his last day on Thiaoouba. They had the emotional attachment with Michel already, and it's kind of, they knew that if they answer the questions further, then it would be very, very emotional. Yeah.
Mm.
I
So
think
I'm going to ask one silly question, and then I'm going to go into Mew a little bit, just a couple of questions, and then we're going to end with talking about Archie and how that could help us here on Earth. Okay. So the first question, I mean, it's not to say silly question, but it really was coming to my mind. He's in this place where, like, they had the sleeping chamber, everything is just high tech, comfortable, amazing. Even the water, they said, came from the air around. And there's a scientist out there, I think it's a black guy, who actually has created a machine similar to that, where it pulls the water out of the surrounding environment, and it produces clean water to drink. Where did they use the bathroom? Like, what was their bathroom situation?
Yeah, so this question was asked to Michel Desmarquet by Dr. Tom Chaco, and there's a toilet in which the waste is actually I would use the word or disappeared, or because they break down the atoms and also the molecules, so everything kind of breaks apart. So that's the toilet that Michel Desmarquet had.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Now that makes perfect sense. Okay. All right. And so now going into Mu. So at the time when right before Mu was destroyed, and I'm bringing in a lot of different things that I've researched or just heard in passing. Um, for starters, the Easter Island sculptures, Thou says that they were created in the image, a stylized image of them, like just one lily of her there. Um, and that she was there at the time, but in a different body. That already is a question mark to me. Like, I don't understand why a Theoban, and I guess it's just because there's some either information missing or I'm not understanding this right, would need another body if their bodies regenerate. Like, why would she be in another body? Or was she at a lower level at that time?
she was at the lower level at that time, so we move
Oh,
up the ladder. We move up the levels.
okay,
That's
okay. All right, so around that same time, so that was in a different body at a lower level. Um, Michel himself finds that he is a seaman, there, right? At the time right before it destroys. And then here's the other weird thing is that, and I forget his name, Lyokuti or something like that. The other Theobian, he is the king of Mu.
yeah.
His astral body is in the king of Mu. So they said they did mention that they can at any point, not to say manipulate, but they can, yeah, I guess manipulate our leaders. So they did say that at one point in the book, and I was like, okay, like if you can, then shouldn't this world look a lot better than it currently does? Like, what's going on? And then they clearly can take on the body, like they can be all these different beings and really infiltrate Earth in order to manipulate what's happening on it. So again, another big question is why have we not advanced if that's the case? Um, yeah, so I mean that was just a question that I had, like just seeing how many of them were in these places of power, and yet we are where we are right now.
I mean, a lot of things that are not known to us, except the information revealed in the book, such as preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. So they sided with the US government at that time to end the World War II much earlier than otherwise. So I think that's the one of the more recent interventions. And I think they must have done a lot of other things that we don't know about. And actually, let me clarify the answer for the last question you had. I think Tao was not a lower level at the lower level at that time, and I think he was still like a Theoban, and then
Oh
because
yes,
yeah,
yes.
so it's not lower level. So I have to clarify the answer.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, they wouldn't make a statue of her if she was lower level. But that
Right.
again, it leads to the question: why would she need another body? That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they I don't know
It's
why.
fine. It's look, it's fine if you don't have an answer. As you can see, I really dive deep. It's
Yeah,
okay.
you
Like
do, you do,
yeah.
you do.
And then so right before we get to the end, because I've taken a lot of your time, it goes back to like I think my biggest concern is this. This is a group that has been infiltrating, manipulating, if helping, it could be helping, interfering. Interfering is the word, and they're saying it's their job, so okay, fine, with human evolution from the very beginning. And have literally, it's not like it was a situation where, oh, we were helping out and they thought that we were gods and they called us gods. There were times, especially when it comes to the Abrahamic faith, where they literally allowed themselves to be considered gods. Like they said it was for the best interest.
Mhm.
Um, and it leads also questions about the Elohim, because people talk about the Elohim in the Bible. So are they the Elohim? Are they the angels? Because at one point when they're flying with him, they can create wings in the back of their back. So it's like, okay, are they the angels? A lot of questions start to come up into play here. And it's just to be very clear for people who have not read the book, they do believe in a God. They do believe like kind of in that source energy that creates all, and there's universal laws, and there's a limit to how much meddling that they can do. Um, but they still also do say that they have the capability to create a full human being, as they did with, Eric and stuff. Um, I get somewhat concerned with the fact that they're able to, like, they've been in our preview all of this time, and we're only now, as of 1987, hearing about the name Thiaoouba, and barely. I mean, granted, there's people who know about it, but it's not really like it's all over, like the way the raw material is. So it's like, why are you kind of hiding? Is my question. Why? Yeah.
I mean, if the book was published and promoted 10 years ago or 20 years ago, people wouldn't really have people were not ready for the knowledge. Even nowadays, if I try to promote the information or knowledge messages in the book, a lot of people wouldn't accept that. That's what really happened. So I guess the timing is important, and even my friends and family members, they're not receptive to the messages.
like Michelle, right?
Like Michelle is. Uh,
And their message, that's another big question is what is their message? Because from what I read in the book, it sounds like they're saying they want us to trust them to help us so that we can help ourselves, right? To trust them so that they can help us, yes, to advance. Would you say that that's their overall message, or is it something else?
I think the message is to have spiritual knowledge so that we can have a concerted action to help ourselves through the use of nonviolent resistance against the tyrannies in the world. Because as I delve into further what's really happening behind the scenes around the world, including what happened in the last few years and also the wars going on, I do see that there's a small group of people running everything behind the scenes, kind of selecting the right person to become the president of important nations, selecting the Secretary of State of the United States, and also putting their agenda into actions to make certain things happen that are not necessarily for the benefit of most people on Earth. And the only way, like those people have their own fear of death, and it's hard to influence them. It's hard to, so I think telling them that there's life after death and near-death experiences are really, really important. The stories are really important to them, for them to understand that they shouldn't fear death, but it's hard for them to really accept this knowledge. So it would require the people at the grassroots level to act together and to really make the change. Because even in the book written by the former chair of the Illuminati, it says that even though they have the super psychic powers, supernatural powers, they're afraid of the people of the power of the people. They're afraid of the collective actions, the collective consciousness of the mass. So it's important for everyone to have the knowledge and to act together. I think this is the message in the book.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're going to end it right after this because I think this is so key. I even posted it when I was reading the book and I got to the part about Archie's, what he did on his planet that helped them to get out of the tyranny. I think this is key. I think this is something that we learned in 2020, whether we want to realize it or not. And it was kind of like a preview of how we can make this work. And if you feel safe, because I mean, not to say, I don't want you to go into how we can do it because it's going to get us in trouble. But if you can just express what Archie said, like what they did in order to free themselves, and then we'll just end it at there.
So what happens is that four people preached spirituality and love and peace. So they demonstrated in front of a palace of their dictatorship government building. I mean, they used nonviolent resistance, and they got killed by the guards because of what they preached. And then a few months later, everyone learned about what happened and realized that if they don't make the change, then it's going to head towards a different direction. So everyone acted together, the police, the soldiers, the journalists, and everyone, the doctors and nurses, everyone worked together and formed this kind of a massive strike in their country. So the dictatorship government had to listen to the demands of the people, and the dictator stepped down, and he wasn't killed. He was just left off to a different location, and very few people died in this kind of change, in the process of the change. So this is what happened. Everything turned out to be much better after this movement. So this is what I've been trying to convey to people, and what I've been trying to do is that the power of the people is not to be underestimated, but it requires knowledge. It requires people to know that nonviolent resistance is the key.
Yes. and inertia. Like, I mean, not buying things, not doing anything, not working. We see how much can be lost money wise on a daily basis when everything just stands still. You know, like the day the earth stands still, that's when they start to listen to the people. But it takes people not being fearful, because that really what it comes down to is that you might have some people who are like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm going to do it. But then you have others that say, look, I have bills to pay, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then they give in, and then it just doesn't work. So it has to be complete unity of the people, and a focused idea of what they want to do. But I thank you so much, Samuel, 100%. I think your heart is completely in the right place. I think you are 1,000,000% a starseed. I think you are on a mission. And I just hope that, I know how dark it can get when you know too much, you know, especially on this planet of sorrow. So I know how dark it can get when you really know a lot, and you I'm kind of going down these rabbit holes, but I just want you to remember that there is source, there is God that is overseeing all of this, that we're not alone, that you have all these different beings out there that are protecting and watching and trying to support us. So I just want you to remember that, as you go on your journey. And I thank you so much for giving us your time and your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.